So it has been almost 2 months since Chainsaw Man came to a conclusion, and it's been around a month and a half since I've last talked about it. It's pretty wild to think how much time has passed in something that seems like it happened within a blink of an eye. It felt extremely quick. And even though the Chainsaw Man has been concluded for a little bit, I wholeheartedly miss it. For the past couple of weeks, I've been wholeheartedly missing it. And to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure why. So I started to think about it. What could I be missing from it? I'm obviously super excited for Chainsaw Man Part 2 and super excited for Studio Mappa's anime adaptation. So what exactly am I missing? And as I was reflecting on Chainsaw Man's story, its experience, I came to a realization that the charm of Chainsaw Man is something that I didn't necessarily see or value, I should say, till it actually concluded. For complete context, I absolutely love Chainsaw Man. I think it's an incredible experience, it's completely unique, and just feels like a whole different medium. When you think about Chainsaw Man being published in Weekly Shonen Jump, it's not the most typical thing that you would kind of reach a conclusion on. If anything, you would look at it and realize maybe it's in the wrong magazine, maybe it's meant to be in Jump Plus, maybe it's meant to be in a seinen magazine. Why is it in Weekly Shonen Jump? I think a lot of people had that same response. When you first get introduced to Chainsaw Man, it literally throws everything in your face. It does not pull the punches. It does not hold back, and right from the get-go, you can fully recognize that this isn't a normal Weekly Shonen Jump experience. This isn't like a lot of the other series within there. So it already subconsciously piques your interest. How is it going to differ from the mold that Weekly Shonen Jump's successful series have managed to build upon for so many years? And while Chainsaw Man definitely isn't the only series that does its own thing and steps out of the mold as much as it can, from its very core, from its very first chapter, everything just felt out of place. Like, this manga should not be in Weekly Shonen Jump because it was either too mature, too serious, played on the emotional and vulnerability of characters, the mental or mindset or trauma that these individuals go through, or just the overly chaotic bloodshed that comes in with these very powerful devils and their interaction with one another. If you've read Fujimoto's previous work, Fire Punch, you know that he does not write or tailor his story or narrative to a specific type of demographic or audience. He seemingly writes however he wants, and it creates this very unorthodox, unpredictable style. In return, you get this very enjoyable story, and as much as Fire Punch has a very odd conclusion, the general concept and the design behind it is extremely interesting. How it was implemented with his very unpredictable and unorthodox nature doesn't necessarily mesh all too well, but undoubtedly its architecture and the overall idea will take you completely by surprise, and something that you would never expect to happen even if you gave it some sort of thought or chance. He is beyond impressive when it comes to subverting expectation, and he's already done this with Fire Punch. But now that he is in a weekly magazine that has normally some sort of mold or consistency between all of the series, his sticks out like a sore thumb. Chainsaw Man, just by the name itself, the imagery that it used, the promotional work, did not fit in. And I think it worked so well to propel so much interest and intrigue into such a weird looking story. What is Chainsaw Man? Why is it with Demon Slayer and My Hero Academia and One Piece and Jujutsu Kaisen? That quirkiness, that uniqueness, something that stands completely on its own 2 feet, but because of the other series surrounding it, because of the magazine and the history of it, for me is the charm of Chainsaw Man. And I can only come to that realization after it concluded because it's left a massive hole in the weekly reading experience. Now don't get me wrong, this isn't to disrespect or devalue or compare series to one another. This isn't to say that Kaisen or Demon Slayer, One Piece, My Hero, whatever it may be, whatever story that you're interested in is run of the mill. I'm not trying to say that. What I'm saying is that because of the guidelines that Weekly Shonen Jump set, what age demographic they actually promote to and publish to, there is rules and guidelines that have to be followed, and Chainsaw Man followed none of those. If anything, it pushed those boundaries further and was one of, if not the only series to completely jump over it, which makes it seem all the more interesting. And this is before you even read the story. But the beauty of Chainsaw Man isn't the fact that it's doing all of these chaotic things and wouldn't necessarily stand out in a seinen magazine, because a lot of other series within that seinen magazine are going to be doing similar things. things. The beauty of it is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. In itself, it also has a very Shonen Jump flair or heart or soul to it. It's not something that overpowers it, but it's enough to give people that comfortable consistency that they're used to within other series. So when you go through a weekly Shonen Jump magazine, you read Kaizen, you read One Piece, you read My Hero, and then you get to Chainsaw Man and you know it's going to be super chaotic, but it's still going to have that Shonen Jump flair or soul to it. For me, Fujimoto has managed to very impressively merge both worlds together. A perfect seinen story going with a perfect shonen story, and you're having all of these very simplistic elements mashed with these very complex, chaotic, and unpredictable elements to create this very split middle ground that teeters on the line of not being within Weekly Shonen Jump. But because it is within the magazine, the amount of eyes and attention that has come towards it, the amount of fans and reception that it has built over the years is nothing short of impressive. A lot of people have had the exact same mindset that I have had, and it's probably the biggest reason why it has globally blown up and has fascinated so many different people, because it's something different. But it's not trying to be different for the sake of it. It's not trying to break the quote-unquote theoretical mold that Shonen Jump has. If anything, he's just writing his own story. He's just doing everything that he wants to do, and Shonen Jump is somewhat complying to it. I'm sure he's had to limit himself in some sort of ways, knowing how Fire Punch was handled and the type of things that I like to focus on. But now that it has left Weekly Shonen Jump and has built this legacy surround it that so many people are interested in, it's undoubtedly left that void in the weekly reading experience. It no longer has that charm or unpredictable nature for me. And obviously that's going to differ for a lot of different people. You may care a whole lot more. You may care a whole lot less. You may not even have read Chainsaw Man before. For me, the weekly reading experience that it produced was unmatched. And don't get me wrong, Kaizen has been absolutely incredible, but when you have a story that is so unpredictable and chaotic and does literally whatever it wants, with its curveballs, with its characters, with its emotions, with how it wants to play upon things, Chainsaw Man thrives off building that anxiety. It thrives off building that unknown and what's going to happen next. And that is one of the best things you can have when reading a weekly story. Going back to what I said before, now that it has built its legacy, where does it go from here? Well, it's moving out of Weekly Shonen Jump, and rightfully so. It's gained a lot of attention, a lot of traction, and is going into Jump Plus, which is a digital magazine that features some of the best up-and-coming series that have been shaking the world quite a bit for how small and early they are. Spy X Family and Kaiju number 8. The best thing about Jump Plus, however, is that as much as it is based around the shonen demographic, the age bracket is a lot more flexible, meaning that yes, it has the shonen quote-unquote title connected to it, but the age bracket also covers the seinen and older demographic. It's a lot larger, meaning that Chainsaw Man can spread its wings. Fujimoto can write however he wants, whatever mature, over-the-top or chaotic things he wants to play upon, he now can in full detail. He is not restricted or held back by any sort of guidelines or rules or restrictions. And that is somewhat, if not the perfect replacement of the weekly reading experience that it gave alongside its competition, in that it stood out so prominently, but now that it's going into a different magazine, it can play on things in a way that we haven't seen it before. Things may get a lot more darker and a lot more serious, probably easily more chaotic and over the top, but unpredictable. Whether it's going to be weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, I'm not entirely sure, but he now has freedom, and it's probably the biggest reason why it was moved over to a digital magazine. Not only does it take the fan base with it and builds up a much bigger retention to the digital magazine, so people will go read Spy X Family, which is already breaking records, Kaiju number 8 having 500,000 copies in circulation with only one volume. They're not only using it to build a much bigger audience for that site and having Weekly Shonen Jump and Jump Plus kind of parallel one another as two places that harbor incredible reception and have a lot of eyes on it, but with one having a lot more freedom and flexibility. As much as I am sad to see it go from Weekly Shonen Jump, I couldn't be more happy for it to evolve and turn into something else entirely. It's 100% proved what it can do, how it completely stands out to its competition, and that's not to slight any series whatsoever. And with the ability to explore things in a more mature way, and the anime by Studio Mappa also on the way, you have a massive path towards success, and something that a lot of us are already thinking could rival Kaizen or Demon Slayer success. And you may think that's completely absurd. There's no way Chainsaw Man of all stories would do that. But let me just remind remind you, no one thought any other series would touch Demon Slayer's success. We all thought that in itself was an anomaly, and it's extremely impressive with what it has done and what it's managed to achieve. But Jujutsu Kaisen is also doing something similar. It's following within those footsteps. It's created a ripple effect, and if Demon Slayer has done it, and Jujutsu Kaisen is currently doing it, any series that has a massive reception prior to its anime and then gets an anime that is extremely good and faithful to the source material, there is a large possibility now that it could follow and blow up in those footsteps because of its predecessors, because of Kaisen, and because of Demon Slayer. It is a ripple effect. It may be blowing it up a little out of proportion, but I did not expect Kaisen to do the numbers that it's currently doing, and it's proving everyone wrong. It is literally breaking the world and following in Demon Slayer's success. Knowing the absolute love that people have for Chainsaw Man, I wouldn't be surprised if the anime is done well, that it too would also follow in those footsteps. The possibility is extremely high. I'm not too sure when it's going to come back, but there is a lot of great things for Chainsaw Man. The future is undoubtedly bright for it, but for now, we'll just have to wait and see. So with that being said, that is basically it. Let me know what you miss about Chainsaw Man. Do you miss reading it weekly? Do you miss the experience that it gave you every single chapter, the unpredictable nature that it provided? Maybe some of its characters, maybe some of the battles. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.